We'll take a dive into BrainPOP. We'll explore a topic and some features, and we'll explore GameUp, which is BrainPOP's game collection. We'll then take a dive into BrainPOP Jr, which is BrainPOP's product for K-2, and we'll take a look at some topics and features there as well. After that, we'll take a look at BrainPOP Educators, which is the support site for all things BrainPOP that Carrie, who's here, and I run. That's our job. So we'll show you how you can get support after today's webinar. And of course, there will be a dedicated QA time at the end, though you can always pop questions in throughout today's presentation as well. And most likely Carrie will be monitoring them in the chat room because it's hard sometimes to be talking and typing simultaneously. Also, just worth noting that this is kind of a general, broad overview of BrainPOP. So if you're already familiar with BrainPOP, you may say, oh, I want to tune in another week when they're going more deeply into some of the features. But if you're new or you haven't seen us in a while, this is a great overview to give you a sense of what's new, and even if you are new to it altogether, to see what's old as well. So just giving that heads up. I'm going to do a bit of an overview about the numbers of what BrainPOP is as a company and the products we produce. Then we'll take a poll to identify which kind of content we should look at today. So when I say BrainPOP is a company, but BrainPOP also has products, I'm talking about this. So the main product is BrainPOP with Tim and Moby. And on BrainPOP, we've got content in all the different subject areas, over 800 topics throughout all subjects: social studies, science, math, arts, and literacy, and everything. And that's geared towards grades 3 to 8. There's also BrainPOP Jr with Annie, who's over here. That's geared towards K-2 or K-3. And there's only 250 topics because it's a much smaller audience. It's just for literally they're smaller because they are younger people who are often smaller, and also literally smaller because K-3 is a smaller span of age range than K-12. So BrainPOP and BrainPOP Jr are the most well-known products on BrainPOP. There's also GameUp. GameUp here is a collection of games, some of which have been produced by BrainPOP, but many of which have been produced by partners. And we've become a game curator, trying to bring together games that we think teachers will find really useful because they're curriculum-based and really help go deeper into a lot of the topics that you may be viewing on BrainPOP. So there's GameUp. Over here, we've got BrainPOP ESL, and it's for Ls. BrainPOP ESL is a series of 90 lessons with a clear scope and sequence that's grammatically driven, that assumes no prior knowledge of the English language. And that's with Ben and Moby. Oh, I appreciate whoever made the scribble to please erase it. Thank you. And that's got a clear scope and sequence. So unlike BrainPOP or BrainPOP Jr, where you may be teaching anything in your classroom and you can go and find a topic about it, BrainPOP ESL really has the scope and sequence from limited to no knowledge of English to much more complicated grammatical concepts. So those are the three major content pieces. We also have thousands of resources to support you on BrainPOP Educators, which we're going to look at in a little while. And we also have a quiz making tool where you can make your own quizzes. And there's more than 20,000 questions that exist in there. So again, I'm going to ask if you just made the scribbles to please erase them. And if not, I'm going to have to turn off the annotation features. So that was the quiz. I'm going to move on to the next slide. Thank you for erasing those. So BrainPOP has all of those products. We also have tools within the products. So if inside BrainPOP, we have a concept mapping tool. So you can make concept maps based on the content that you're looking at. We have that quiz mixer tool that I was talking about, so you can make your own quizzes. And the games that we have on GameUp, many of them produce assessment artifacts that help you understand how your students are doing on certain activities. So there's concept mapping, there's quiz making, there's games that produce assessment artifacts, and it's all viewed through individual accounts. So teachers and students log in as individuals, and that can all be submitted. All right. So here's why we kept on the annotation tool. We're going to do a poll. We want to know which subject area should we look at on BrainPOP today. Should we look in science, social studies, ELA, or math? So again, you can choose the, why don't you choose the arrow and click the arrow above the above the subject area that you'd like to look at. So if you like science, click over science. You see, just click a little bit to the left, and that allows us to know today. Looking like it's a pretty clear. Well, okay, I'm thinking social studies because I'm seeing 3, 6, 9, 10 social studies and about 4. There's about 9 science. Ooh, it's tough. I'm going to choose social studies today because it looks like that's where the most are. And we'll do that in BrainPOP, and then maybe in BrainPOP Jr. we can look at science. So let's take a look at social studies. So we've taken the poll. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen. So you're going to see a broadcast of me on BrainPOP, and we're going to look at some social studies content. So here's the BrainPOP homepage. As you can see on the homepage, we have today's feature. There's always a featured movie that's free. Even if you're not a subscriber to BrainPOP, you can always watch the free movie. Today's about conducting an interview. And on the right, there's some things that you could do. You could take a quiz. You could make a map about conducting an interview. And then over here on the left, you see I've got science, social studies, English, math, arts, music, health, and engineering and tech. Those are the different subject areas. And then there's a new and trending area, a tour, and free stuff, and then this little ad for BrainPOP Educators. I'm going to click into social studies because that's what we chose just a minute ago. So I'm now moused over social studies and I'm clicking on it. So the way BrainPOP is categorized is by subject, unit, and topic. So I clicked into social studies, and now I'm seeing units. These are different units. So there's stuff about ancient cultures, contemporary culture, elections, historical figures. These are all the units. I could also say I want to see all the topics. So go down to the most granular level. And when I click that, it changes the view and it shows me all of the different topics in social studies. So you can see there's biographies of different people and elements from history and things about the branches of government, all sorts of great stuff here. I'm going to look today at the Constitutional Convention. This is one of our new ones. I really like it. So once I click Constitutional Convention, it brings me to the topic page. And I can see there's this little image here, and then a bunch of different buttons over to the right. So we're going to go through every button on this page. But we're going to start with the movie. BrainPOP is most well known for the short animations that explain things to kids. I could click the View Full Screen button, which would make it full screen, but I'm going to keep it small today so that we can all see how it looks.
How many times do I have to tell you? This is an original copy of the Constitution. You can't borrow it with your library card. Dear Tim and Moby, why do they call the Constitution a living document? Thanks.
So I'm going to pause it right here because all BrainPOP movies begin with a question that's been written in from a student to BrainPOP, and then the rest of the movie explains the answer to the question. So this question doesn't say, what was the Constitutional Convention? It says, why do they call the Constitution a living document? And the real answer is that at the Constitutional Convention, they ironed out the Constitution, but it was also, they ironed out the fact that there would be a Bill of Rights. So that's why it's a living document, and it's built on, and it changes over time. I'm going to click here the closed captioning button because one of the wonderful things about BrainPOP is as you're watching, we get to the visual explanation. We hear words, we can see the words, and we see the visual. So let's keep playing it for a minute.
Thanks, Selma. Great question, Selma. You probably heard all about what an amazing document the U.S. Constitution is, how it's a blueprint for our federal government, how it unified 13 states into one nation, and how it's lasted more than 200 years through hard times and even a civil war.
I'm going to pause there because this is a great example of how BrainPOP really does explanation. So we see it's looks like a blueprint. How the 13 colonies became a solid union, and it showed 13 different colors turning to one red color, and then how it's lasted over 200 years, and we see the time going through. So here we go. We're at the quiz, and I'm going to click the classic mode. Because the classic mode is a classic quiz where you only get feedback at the end. So I'm going to click classic mode, and basic questions, which of the following statements is an opinion about the U.S. Constitution? It's survived 200 years. It's a blueprint for the U.S. government. It's the best plan for a government. It took a lot of compromise to put it together. Well, this is kind of a higher order thinking, because I have to say, well, what's an opinion? I need to know what an opinion is. And that may not have been explained explicitly within the movie. So I'm just going to click the best plan for a government. And I'm just going to randomly go through them. But you get a sense. It's 10 questions. It's multiple choice. I wouldn't use this as a strong summative assessment of what students understood or didn't understand, but it's playful. There's tons of ways of doing it. You could have kids do it on their own and submit to you. You could take it as a class, have kids vote on what they think the answer is, or have debates about what they think the answer is. Oh, wow, I did lousy. I scored 2 out of 10, but that's actually about right for a random click. Should be 2.5. At the end, I can click Submit to Teacher. And when I click Submit to Teacher, I can choose a class. So if I'm in and I want to, if I'm a student, say I'm a 6th grade student and the school's departmentalized and I have a social studies teacher and a math teacher and all sorts of different teachers, I can be enrolled in multiple classes and submit content to any of them. So maybe I'm in a Civil War class and maybe I'm in a Chicago history class. So I'd choose my class, I'd click Submit. And now as a student, my work has been submitted to my teachers. We'll talk about enrolling students a little bit later. So that's what students can do. You could also review my results. And when I click them, this shows me what I got right and wrong down along the bottom. I can see, oh, I got the first and fourth one right and the other one's wrong. It tells me which one is correct. So I can review that way. All right, so we looked at the movie and we looked at the quiz. So we did the movie, we did the quiz. The next thing along the top here is Make a Map. And Make a Map is that concept mapping tool that I mentioned during the introduction. It's something we're super excited about. This turns BrainPOP from a movie where you're kind of consuming information to a place where you can create and produce a learning artifact. So when I click it, it takes me into a different viewer. And the little movie is still going to load up here. It's the exact same movie that we watched before. But now I can make a concept map with it. And concept mapping is a very specific learning and teaching strategy. We've got tons of support content about it on BrainPOP Educators, and we even have a dedicated webinar all about it 2 weeks from today. So if you're more interested in learning more about it as a teaching strategy and learning strategy, we'll go more deeply into it. But I can tell you very quickly, the thing that you do with a concept map is you basically start with a question. So you may say, what was the Constitutional Convention? And I can begin answering the question using different elements of the BrainPOP movie, images, and keywords. So I'm going to start watching the movie and go to a moment.
Document the U.S. Constitution is.
So I'm going to take a picture here. See, I click the camera icon, and it took a little picture of that moment of the movie. And I can say, what was the Constitutional Convention? And I'm going to say, the Constitution was written at the Constitutional Convention. Okay, so that's an basic piece of it. But as I go deeper into the movie, maybe I want to add different moments.
How it's a blueprint for our federal government. How it unified.
Fast forward to different parts. I'm going to go back to where it said framers because I liked that.
Wrong idea. Well, like that the Constitution is some sacred text. Or that the framers, the guys who wrote the thing, all agreed with each other.
So I'm going to pause there, I'm take another picture, and I'm going to say, was written by framers. That's weird. They weren't writers, they were framers. Well, maybe that has something to do with why it was a living document. And then maybe throughout the video, I want to identify who the framers of the Constitution were, so I could add that. The cool thing is that you notice wherever I bring in a moment of the movie, there's a big play button. And when I click that play button on the concept map,
you've probably heard all about what an amazing document the U.S. Constitution is.
It brings me to that moment in the movie where I snapped the photograph. Click this one here.
Or that the framers, the guys who wrote the thing, all agreed with each other.
So whenever I click the camera icon on Make a Map in the upper left, that takes that moment, puts it onto my canvas, and then whenever I press the play button on the little moment on the canvas, I can re-watch that moment. The snippet will just begin at the moment that you clicked the camera icon, or actually 2 or 3 seconds beforehand to provide context, and it will play until you stop it. There's also tons of images. So maybe I want to bring in the images of all the funny different states. And I can say maybe there were representatives from different states. Maybe I want to bring in a picture of George Washington. And maybe this is Madison. So I could bring them and add. I can also bring in keywords. If I bring in keywords, this is really great. So I bring in the keyword that says what the Articles of the Confederation is. And what do you see to the left of the name there? I'm mousing over it right now. There's a big play button. And so what do you think happens when I click Articles of the Confederation play button?
To discuss changes to the Articles of Confederation. That was America's first constitution, written in 1776.
It brings me to that moment of the movie when the word is used in context. So all of these words are used in context in the movie. The New Jersey plan, the Virginia plan, and how ultimately there was a compromise. So all of these moments will have a camera icon, and when I click it, it'll bring me back to that moment of the movie. So I click it, you're not going to see the movie right now.
The Virginia plan also called for proportional representation in both houses of Congress.
But if I click back on the movie menu item on the left, it will appear again. So I'll definitely hear it, and I may be able to see it if I click the movie icon. I can also bring in blank nodes, change the colors of the nodes, and do all sorts of things to organize my understanding of the Constitutional Convention. This is a really neat tool. Of course, you can save it, and after saving it as a student, you can submit it to a teacher. After submitting it to a teacher, you could continue working on it next week, where I've done some more research about Shays' Rebellion. I want to add that to my concept map. I can continue working on it and resubmit it to a teacher. So it can be submitted over time, and it can be built over time. So that's the concept mapping on BrainPOP. All right, so we've looked at the movie, we've looked at the quiz, we've looked at Make a Map. Here are 2 different games. One's called Sortify and one's called Time Zone X. We'll just look at Sortify today, but it's definitely worth looking at. When I click this, it's going to take me again away from the topic page, but into a game that's all about the US Constitution. Sortify is a game where you have to do something. If it's called Sortify, I bet you can guess what you need to do in this game. It's probably a game where you do some sorting, right? So what happens is you get a whole bunch of little data bits here, and your job is to put the data into similar categories. So let's see, I bring free speech into a bucket, and I can choose the categories. Is free speech part of the Bill of Rights? Is it an individual right? Does it have to do with limited government? Does it have to do with checks and balances? The executive branch? Is it an amendment? It probably fits in a bunch of those, because it could be part of the Bill of Rights. It could be an individual right. I'm not sure about delegated or state powers, but let's say it's an individual right. So now I need to find different bits of information that would also represent individual rights, like the right to vote. That would make sense. And a trial by jury. Let's say I want to make a different bucket that's about the Bill of Rights. I want to say, okay, what's part of the Bill of Rights? Let's see, maybe there's the right to privacy, authority over immigration. Now let's see how I did, because I'm not sure if I'm actually right. So after I say, okay, put all the individual rights in there that I like, I can click Submit Bucket. All right, I did great. I got 6 of them. I got 3 of them. I got 2 points each. But now I can no longer put any more data into individual rights. That category is gone. Let's see if I got right with the Bill of Rights. Authority over immigration was incorrect, but the right to privacy was correct. So you can see authority over immigration came back out because I categorized that incorrectly. So this is a game that's all about categorization. Again, like I said with the concept map, there's tons of support materials to get to know Sortify a little bit better. I'm not going to get a chance to go more deeply into it right now. But it's worth showing you the game, saying that at any point in this game, you can also take a snapshot and comment on it. So I'm a bit confused about which category to choose next. And I can save it and I can submit this to my teacher. This snap thought tool, which is called a snap thought because it's like a snapshot, but it's a snap, and then you write a thought. You can submit these to teachers, and it gives you as a teacher pretty great insight into how your students are thinking through a gameplay process. So I can take up to 5 snapshots per game. I'm going to close it for now. All right, so you can see this also has to do with the Bill of Rights, the presidential power, US Constitution, branches of government. And if I go through here, I'll probably see the Constitutional Convention. So these are all related movies that make sense when thinking about this game. The fact that students choose their own bucket labels is really great, and some are much more challenging than others, which really allows for differentiation in the gameplay itself, which is pretty awesome. All right, so that's Sortify. There's also Time Zone X. This is a game I'll show very quickly. It's about the Constitutional Convention, and in this game, your job is to sequence different moments of the Constitutional Convention in the right order. You have to click and drag. Was the Virginia Plan proposed before or after the Great Compromise? Probably before. Got it right. Articles of the Confederation ratified. Let's see. That probably happened before. Good, I got it right too. Shays Rebellion. I think let's get. Okay. Anyway, it's a game where I can put different moments from history in order. And as I level up, which I just did, you get more data from different topics. So I get maybe the George Washington data next, or causes of the American Revolution. And I'd have to put those moments in a larger sequence, either before or after the Constitutional Convention. So it's a pretty neat game. And so we've looked at the movie, the quiz, the Make-A-Map, the Sortify, the Time Zone X. Those are two specific games that BrainPOP has made, but there's many other games that have to do with US history as well. And if I click GameUp, it will take me to them. We'll look at that in just a moment. Right now I'm going to click FYI. FYI, you see there's a number of books there. When I click that, it shows me a series of informational texts about the Constitutional Convention. So here's some information about Madison, Articles of Confederation. Kind of goes deeper into stuff that may not have been included in the movie. Here's some numbers and stats. This is great stuff to use when kids are starting to do research projects. Of course, BrainPOP's a really good place in general to start research projects because the movies give a general overview. But the this nonfiction informational text in the FYI really helps when provide a bit more context and whatnot. And if you've got a screen reader, you can just highlight the text and control click on it, have it read aloud. It's not read aloud for you within BrainPOP, but if you're on if you have a screen reading program, you can select it and have it read aloud. There's information about the politics, about practice, a bit more in depth, and there's even a comic. This is great nonfiction informational text if you're doing Common Core prep. These can be decent question stems. Put them in there for kids to read and then ask a question around it. And finally, I'm going to show the activities. The activities in many ways are like black line masters. So you got pros and cons here. So what was the pro of the Great Compromise? Well, people got something done. That was a pro. The con was that there were some problematic aspects to the Constitution. So you can type in these, you can save them, and you can submit them to a teacher. This one says primary source. So near the end of the convention, Hamilton drafted his own version of the Constitution, shared many features, but also included a few of his more radical ideas. So I can click this read button, and it will open here a visual of Hamilton's draft of the Constitution, as well as a transcript of it. So one can look at the original, because that's the true primary source. The transcript allows us to actually read it. And when I go back to the other tab, I can see there's a few questions. Which of the two legislative bodies in Hamilton's plan represents the general population, and what does the other body represent? So I can type in based on what I explored in the primary source. So again, thinking Common Core perspective, there's a lot of work that you can do with that. There's a graphic organizer one can fill in, and then here's a vocab sheet. So all of these words are defined within the content of the movie. So you may want students to fill that in on their own, or use this as a great way to add to a word wall or whatever you're doing. All of these pieces, the activity, the primary source, the graphic organizer, the work that the students do can be saved and submitted to a teacher. So here we are back on that homepage. We've seen the movie. We've taken the quiz. I gave you a quick tour of Make a Map, Sortify, and Time Zone X. All of those things have many more support resources on BrainPOP Educators. You just now know that they exist. We looked at FYI, which was nonfiction informational text. We looked at the activities, which are like Black Line Masters, where students can answer some questions, and in many cases, look at a primary source. About 150 topics on BrainPOP have a primary source. The last thing I'm going to do is show you GameUp. If I click GameUp, it's going to take me away from BrainPOP into our game section. It says, hey, here's a branches of government game. You could just play it. I got to it's a click and drag. It's actually in some ways kind of similar to Sortify. This is one of our more simple games. We have more complicated games as well. If you type primary source into the search at the top of BrainPOP, you type in primary source, it will show you all of the different topics that have primary sources on them. So that's kind of neat. I'm just going to click back to when I clicked GameUp from the Constitutional Convention page, it brought me right to this game. But this is one of 100 different games that are on GameUp. So I'm going to click the GameUp icon over here. Looks like a controller. And it's going to say, oh, there's a whole lot of different collections of games here. So we've got STEM games. We've got social studies games, and all the different subject areas, and then different ways of categorizing it. So these are games that work on your tablet, if you're at brainpop.com on a tablet. Here are some civics games that might make sense to look at based on what we were just exploring. And when I click through here, it says, hey, here's the different games. So here's Argument Wars. Test out your persuasive abilities by arguing real Supreme Court cases. Craft the strongest argument to defeat the opposing lawyer and win. And there's Branches of Power, Citizen Science, Court Quest, Do I Have a Right? All these are games that explore civics in a pretty interesting way and go deep into the consequences and the results of the Constitutional Convention. So there's over 100 games on BrainPOP's GameUp. About 30 to 40 of them have that snapshot tool where you can take a picture and write a little something about it and submit it to a teacher. And other games like Sortify and Time Zone allow students to submit all of their results to a teacher so the teacher can look more deeply at it. So there's definitely ways of doing a bit of assessment, or at least documenting students' process through gameplay on GameUp. So we've now looked at BrainPOP. We did a deep dive into social studies Constitutional Convention. And we took the quiz, we made a map, we played Sortify, Time Zone X. We looked at the FYI and the activities and GameUp. And the key is that we just did that for one topic. But that is possible for 800 topics on BrainPOP. We just looked at social studies, but if we looked at science, we'd have a similar experience. English, math, arts, music, health, engineering, and tech. So that's the deep dive into that. What I'm going to do now is bring us into BrainPOP Jr. so we can get a quick look at what BrainPOP Jr. looks like. I'm going to go up here to the top, and I'm going to click on BrainPOP Jr. Now you can see I'm a different interface. Now BrainPOP that we were just looking at, it works on a mobile device. You go to brainpop.com, it will load. If you go to BrainPOP or junior.brainpop.com on a mobile device, it'll say, hey, download our app. So what we're looking at now only works on computers and Chromebooks. It does not work yet on tablets because it's still based in Flash. But this is a game this is a website that is designed for younger kids, K-2. And you'll notice whenever I mouse over anything, it's going to read it aloud to me.
Hello. Social Studies Notebook. Science Notebook. Reading and Writing Notebook.
Now, I promised at the beginning that we would look at a science topic.
Science Notebook.
So I'm clicking Science. And just like BrainPOP Jr is designed by subject, unit, and topic. So if I was looking at science and I wanted to look at the conservation, I can click on this. And I can see there's 3 different topics about conservation within science. So as I said, there's 250 topics on all of BrainPOP Jr. It's fewer than on BrainPOP because it's a smaller audience. So let's click on natural resources.
Natural resources.
All right, so here we are on the page. You can see just like on BrainPOP, the movie is front and center. And down below, there's a series of different activities we can do afterwards. I'm going to watch a bit of the movie so you can get a sense of the quality. They also begin with questions, but they also start with a little song, which many little kids love. I'll turn on closed captioning and click play. So here we have Annie.
I'm planting bean seeds. What are you planting, Moby? You're planting peanut butter and jelly seeds?
Okay.
Sandwiches don't grow on trees, Moby. What are natural resources?
So you may have noticed when Annie asked what are natural resources, the play button turned red, which is a cue to you. Hey, good time to pause. And if you're watching this with your class, ask them what they know. They may say, we have no clue what natural resources are, but natural, well, doesn't that mean like nature or like things that come from the earth? Or, yeah, well, that's right. Natural is something they may have heard of, but maybe not resources. So you could start your KWL chart this way. What are natural resources? Maybe what they know, what they want to know, and then what they learned. But you'll see throughout the movie as she's explaining, she's answering different questions. So this one is, what are natural resources? And let's see her begin to answer the question.
Natural resources. A natural resource is something of value we get from the environment. Air, water, and sunlight are all natural resources we need to live. Land and soil, plants, and animals are also natural resources.
So again, the power of the animation, the visual explanation, the connection between the words and the images really help reinforce some of the elements of what's important here. She also speaks slowly and more clearly, and it's clearly more targeted towards younger students. So this one is 5 minutes long. There's different things that are defined. We're going to see later how that can how that works. Here's another question: what is happening to our environment? Talking a little bit about some of the depressing things that are happening to our environment, and then some of the things that we can do. So that is the movie. If I go down below, you can see, just like on BrainPOP, there's quizzes. These are 5 questions instead of 10, but the answers are read aloud, which is very nice. Let's do the online quiz.
Moby brings his lunch in a paper bag every day. What can he do instead to save paper? Ride the bus to school. Use a reusable lunchbox.
The reason I'm just mousing over that is to show you that even if your students couldn't read these on their own, it's read aloud to them, which makes it great for a center. They can really, go and check it out. And it gives them feedback after whether they get it right or wrong. And if they get it wrong, it just gives it an extra.
To clean up.
But we get a smiley Moby if we're correct. Quizzes absolutely can be printed, and if students are logged in as individual, they can submit at the end. So I can submit to teacher or print my score. I could also print them in advance and hand them to students. All right, let's go back to natural resources. So there's the hard quiz and easy quiz. Questions are a little bit different. There's the word wall. This is all the words that are defined in the movie, and they're read aloud to us.
Renewable resource.
And when I click on it,
a natural resource that can grow back or be replaced over time.
So again, just verbal explanations. And there's no right or wrong ways to use this. There's tons of ways. And it's just a great way of engaging with content and information in a way that's fun and interesting.
Print the notebook questions.
Oh, that's worth pointing out. If I click print the notebook questions.
Print the notebook questions.
I'm not sure if you can see my print dialog right now, the dialog box, but on my computer, it's saying, hey, you can now print the natural resources notebook, and maybe you hand these to students beforehand, and they could take little notes while watching and begin at least teaching the concept of note taking and looking more deeply at media. So it's not just about consuming it, but it's about making notes on what you learn from watching it. So that's the print notebook feature. Again, that was up here.
Print the notebook questions.
All right, so we looked at the word wall. Let's look at the draw about it. Draw a new renewable resource. Very simple. Gives me a little canvas to draw on. I'm going to draw wind. And if I wanted, I could save it and submit it to my teacher.
Submit to teacher.
There it is. Simple. Draw about it. There's always a different drawing prompt. Write about it.
Write about it. What could happen if we use up natural resources too quickly? How could the environment change?
So again, typeable. I'm Andrew, and I could type here, we could run out of food, whatever, and I could save and submit to teacher. So this is a writing prompt. So we drew about it, we wrote about it.
Write about
Read
it.
about
Read
it
about
is
it.
actually just a series of books about natural resources, but you can't read them here. It's some suggestions for you and your class and your students. So different from the FYI that we looked at a minute ago. That's to read about it. Talk about it doesn't actually record our voice. It just gives us a different kind of graphic organizer to fill in. How can you conserve these natural resources? And often they're kinds of things that could lead to discussions. So, all right, let's have a conversation. How could we save water, plants, and fuel? And then maybe make a list. But like all the others, these can be typed and submitted. Activity is usually something it's a printable. Okay, so these you can is another activity to do when thinking about natural resources and conservation. And those are different on all of the different topic pages. Belly up is a question, and it's like a joke, usually. Who's the litter bug polluting the tank? Sorry, hey Joey, we got to conserve resources. You should recycle. I know, but every time I put an empty bottle in the bin, it floats to the top. But haha. All right, so maybe even funny to read this with the students and say, well, why is that funny? And they say, oh, right, sink or float. We did that last week. That's the belly up. Pop a joke.
Pop a joke.
Just gives us a joke right here. It doesn't even take us to another page.
What is made of wood and acts like a king?
I click the answer icon.
A ruler.
Oh, groan. Oh my gosh, what a groan. All right. And if it's groany, then you know it's right. Everyone's in on the joke. Last thing here is the game. Sometimes these are games like Sortify, which we looked at before. This one's about natural resources. And sometimes they're little simpler games as well. So there's lots of different games that can be here. So this one's the Sortify, where they have to put the little data bits into different categories.
Natural resource.
You'll notice on BrainPOP Jr, we do not yet have the Make a Map tool. So the concept mapping tool that we looked at on BrainPOP is not yet on BrainPOP Jr. It's coming, should be here very soon, but it's not there yet. But we have taken a look now at the movie and all the different activities that you can do afterwards. The game, the activity, the belly up, the pop a joke, the word wall, the less up, the talk about it, read about it, write about it.
Write about it. Draw about it.
The last thing I'm going to do is click Lesson Ideas. Lesson Ideas is going to take us from BrainPOP Jr. into BrainPOP Educators. This is where all the support stuff for BrainPOP lives.
Lesson ideas.
And this is dropping me right onto a page that's giving me information about natural resources and maybe some lesson plans. So here's a recycling lesson plan, an earth awareness lesson plan, cost of oil, activities for kids for K to 3. I could click through here. And this is teacher facing. So it's saying, hey, this is an activity, the RR, find ways in the classroom to reduce, reuse, and recycle, brainstorm different ideas together, and have students create guidebooks to distribute to fellow students or family members. So there's lots of different ways that we just suggest using the content or thinking about using using BrainPOP or not even BrainPOP. Some of it's not even about BrainPOP. So whenever you click that lesson ideas page, it's going to bring you to a specific page for that topic. So this is BrainPOP Educators though, and on BrainPOP Educators, you'll find the support resources like that, lesson plans, teaching tips, game ideas, all sorts of things, as well as a lot of support content. So I always like to show the tools on BrainPOP menu right here. So if I want to set up those individual accounts, I saw someone ask about that in the chat room. Here's a page that gives you tons of information about how to do it. It's called My BrainPOP, the individual accounts. This is an overview video. This says how to create your account as a teacher. This is how to set up a class. If I click through, it's going to bring me to a little movie. It's going to show me how to set up a class with My BrainPOP. And I can just watch it here.
Hello, it's Annie here, and today I'm going to show you how to set up classes on My BrainPOP. To get started with My BrainPOP, click on My Classes. Then
I'm not going to watch the whole movie with you. I'm just letting you know that it exists. Again, that was on Tools on BrainPOP, individual accounts. I'm not going to go much more into depth about BrainPOP Educators other than to say that this is your support site for everything. Today's webinar, as well as hundreds of webinars we've done over the years, are all archived on BrainPOP Educators, so you could watch. You can always get in touch with us if you've got questions after today. I'm Andrew, and that's Carrie. I'll put my name here, Andrew G. at BrainPOP. You can always ask questions, and we'll do our best to get back to you. So thanks for your time. We really, really appreciate that you take an hour of your time, which is the most precious resource, to learn more about BrainPOP. It means a ton to us. We hope that you found today useful. And we realized that it was like drinking from a fire hose, because there's a lot of content on BrainPOP. But this was the general overview. There's no expectation that you can go and run and use everything effectively. Know that BrainPOP Educators exists as a location for you to go and learn more on your own time, rather than in this synchronous time. We really hope that you found today useful, and we would love to hear about your new uses of BrainPOP if you choose to go dive deeper into it. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you, thank you, thank you.